You're not.
Yeah.
I ask that the candidates put the mic close like this. People in the back say they can't hear you.
I think this should be directed to Mrs. Broomall. Mrs. Broomall, you made an allegation, I assume earlier this evening, that there was $1 million conflict of interest that you were aware of. Did you say that?
I'm not sure.
That's what I heard you say, that you were aware of $1 million conflict of interest. And I think the question would be, if you were aware of that, then why didn't you report it to the Ethics Commission so it could be heard?
The $1 million I was referring to was a lawsuit that was brought. It all started with, we only have 2 minutes, right? In my opinion, there was a direct conflict of interest with Brian Lockhart wanting to privatize our water system, with him being a board member of Cecil Bank. And I did go to the Ethics Commission to file a conflict of interest or an ethics charge. I was told not to do it, didn't have to do it because there already was one. And there was an investigation conducted. There was a finding. I believe the investigation cost the county close to $10,000. There was enough information, from what I've been told, that an ethics hearing should have been scheduled, but for some reason they couldn't get enough of the Ethics Commission members together to schedule a hearing. So the only thing Michael Burns said he could do was to have Mr. Lockhart file the agreement that he would not participate in any more decisions regarding Artesian, and that's exactly what happened. So in our closed sessions, the commissioners, it was ironic that a lot of the issues that ARCA brought up in their lawsuit were the same things that we agreed upon, that why we needed to revisit the agreement and see if we could clarify some of the issues regarding nutrient credits and getting a timeline on the infrastructure going in the Route 40 corridor. And I can't remember all of them off the top of my head right now. But I just thought it was so ironic that the very things that the lawsuit brought up were exactly the things that we revisited. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Boyle. Can you explain how you could run the county as in a business-like manner and also give very good constituent service at the same time?
Well, if General Motors qualified me to do anything after my GM career, it's to run a business, or like a government like this county, like a business. At General Motors, we had a product, which was obviously the automobile, but we also had, as supervisors, we had other products which were services to our people. At GM, I always said my people were my most valuable asset, and I treated them as such. Thank you. In the county, I'm going to say that our citizens are the county's most valuable asset, and our services to those citizens are our product to those citizens. And I think by using good, strong business principles, which I learned at General Motors, that includes coordinating, facilitating, leadership, that we can do a better job in this county than we have been doing. I hope that answers your question.
This message for Mr. Hebron. The golden egg was supposed to be the BRAC, bringing jobs and businesses into the area. Well, it's really not doing too good here in this county, but over in Harford County it is. What do you do in the county as an executive to bring businesses? What kind of things do you do to bring more tax base in for the county?
Well, the first thing I would do, if elected, would get together with all the board members, sit down, find out what each one of them want to do and where they want to go, and then try to get everybody on the same page of music, and then we can move forward. Certainly some of the things you cannot do is like some of the things that's been done in the past when you make a contract with someone, and after you make the contract, you break the contract. That gives the county, if it was a good or a bad contract, it was a contract, but that gives the county a bad eye. And like a black eye, people don't want to do business with somebody if you welch on your deal, your contract. And the other thing is, what I would do, if you want to entice business to come here, you've definitely got to do personal property tax. As far as I'm concerned, is a horrible. All taxes are not good. I don't like taxes. I don't think nobody in this room does. But a personal property tax on a small business is very harmful. I've been knocking on doors for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm hearing a lot of people complaining about that inventory tax. It's killing them because they're going to move over to Delaware and take their business over there, where every time you do that, you've done lost 2 or 3 jobs. We cannot allow that. And I know I'm going to get a lot of static, but that's one tax I want to slowly try to phase out. And it's going to be hard up front, but I think on the back end, I think we're going to gain jobs because people will be able to free up some of their money and be able to hire some people and expand. And when you got to get a person that's really involved in economic development also, but you got to build trust up in your surrounding communities and businesses to even want to come here. And that's going to be my first goal I'm going to work on if elected. Thank you.
I have a question for Commissioner Brumel. You recently introduced regulation changing drug treatment, grouping drug treatment maintenance bills with doctors, dentists, psychologists, counseling clinics, etc., instead of isolating methadone clinics. You were warned of unintended consequences by fellow commissioners and constituents. You stubbornly ignored good advice and forced West Cecil Health Clinic into non-compliance. You routinely pull these kinds of shenanigans with your voting bloc. Tuesday night, you were at the zoning variance meeting, and you were actually defending West Cecil or trying to help them get their variance against a regulation that you brought in.
Okay. Sometimes I'm wondering if it's a question or if it's a political statement. Okay, so what I'd like to say is the first time I introduced the methadone or the clinic ordinance was back in April. And I had given direction to our our planning and zoning director that make sure it's not targeted for a federal lawsuit by the ADA. I was familiar with my background in checking into this, that it couldn't be a target. Well, that's exactly what it turned out to be. So the next time, I basically drafted the ordinance, and you cannot specifically target certain clinics. It has to be a general ordinance. And I could not target drug treatment clinics. All I could do in addressing them was to say that they would have proper parking infrastructure. Anyone who drives by the Elkton Treatment Facility knows there is not proper parking infrastructure. And people that are taking their methadone medicine, they don't necessarily have the best reaction time in driving. And then when you look at where Rose's Diner is located, that to me was a recipe for disaster. And also, the only other thing, there was buffers implemented because of I think it was 750 feet from a church of worship, daycare, school, 200 feet from a residential center, or residential zoning. And I felt that that was proper, looking at Harford County. Their definition of clinic and their buffers were about the same. The West Cecil Health Clinic was not a drug treatment clinic. It was a clinic that was meeting the health needs for that community. In the last census, it was identified as an underutilized area for physician services. We agreed as a board of commissioners to support that project. That we had to show at that Board of Appeals meeting that that location was the best location for looking at other areas. And they proved that, I believe. Thank you.
My name is Ken Wiggins, and sorry, really close. Okay. I think it was last fall, we had an issue. Last fall, we had an issue with the tolls on the bridges, and somebody mentioned the goose and the golden egg. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that's strangling the county is the fact that the state's artificially erected an economic barrier across that river to this county and isolated us. So as county executive, what would you do to rectify that? There was sort of a declared victory. We got a compromise out of the deal the last time. To me, it's not a compromise. It's just it's a halfway measure. I think we need to do more than that, and I'm wondering what would you do? Was the question. And I guess I'll pick on Mr. Pritchard. He's nobody's asked him a question like this. So
Well, it's a simple thing.
We don't own the bridge. We don't own the water under the bridge. And the problem we have is with the people in Annapolis. And as county executive, I'm not sure there will be anything, if elected, that I could do. But if you go back in history, you know, when the bridge was paid for, the tolls were supposed to come off. I guess they forgot that. So, as county executive, there's just absolutely the powers the county executive have. There's nothing that could be done to lower those tolls. But I'd sure like to do it.
I got a solution.
Harry's got a solution. Give a solution, Harry.
Build your own bridge.
Good job, Barry.
Except we can't get access on either shore. Thank you.
I too have a question for Mr. Pritchard.
Thank you.
Considering what you've just said about our difficulties with Annapolis, how then would you explain your statements you've made in support of Plan Maryland, which would take more power out of the county and send it to Annapolis?
Well, the executive order did that. When the governor signed the executive order, he did that. Now, all we can do, or I feel all that I can do if I'm elected county executive, is it's a game. And the county executive and his staff and the county council, we've got to position the county to reap the benefits, if there are, of Plan Maryland. The other thing we can do, Stephen, is as good Republicans, we can work real hard and we can elect a Republican governor next time. It is an executive order, and the first step that Republican governor can do is take it away, son. Thank you.
Okay, we've went around twice, so what we're gonna do again is ask each one of you to answer a question. Jackie's gonna ask it. You have 1 minute to respond.
Okay, I have a question about property rights, because property rights are very important to me, and I want to know how well you're going to protect my individual property rights. And I just want to frame this, I want to go back to the York Building Products decision. One of the core things that our founders thought that was very important was property rights. Thomas Jefferson in the original draft wrote that our inalienable rights included life, liberty, and property. Of course, that was later changed to the pursuit of happiness. In that particular decision, there were two separate entities. There were the Carpenter's Point residents that had their property rights that should have been respected. There was also York Building Products, who also had a parcel of land that also had property rights. And the final decision by the commissioners, rather than keep the status quo, which would not have violated their property rights, or keep working to come up with a compromise, they actually downzoned that property against the will of York Building Products. If it can happen to them, it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone else in this room upon the whim of the Planning Commission or the commissioners. We're a nation of laws, we're not a democracy. Laws are meant to protect the minority, and I want to get each of your take on that particular decision and what you would do to protect individual property rights.
Let's go the other side first. We went right to left. Let's go left to right.
First off, for those of you that know me, that's very important to me. That strikes really deep in my heart.
I can't hear you back there.
Hold up next to
Put
your
the
chin.
mic like
Hold
this.
up close to your chin.
I think it was off.
Okay.
Is that now?
It's off.
You got it?
Up, push it up and.
On?
It's on.
Now it's on, the other way. Yeah, the other way. I voted for property rights on a couple issues when I was in office, and that's very dear to my heart. And it was farmers with their property rights. And the last one, I think, that probably lost my last election, I stood very firm on, if somebody comes before me as a commissioner at that time or whenever I'm in office, and they're not breaking the law, I will not rule against them. I will not tell them they can't do it if they're not breaking the law. And there was a group that really didn't like my decision, and they really worked on me to get me out of office because it was up in the, I guess, the east end of the county on a project was being worked on. And I lost the election over that, but I'd vote the same way again because that's very important to me. And if you're asking about, you asked about that, the other one?
York.
York? I got time to answer that?
10 seconds.
Well, they didn't ask to be downzoned,
Right.
so I wouldn't have done that.
Right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I was one of the 2 votes on that 3-2 vote when the property owned by York Building Products was downzoned. I felt that if anything, we should have left it alone to retain the property rights of that business. Jackie, you're absolutely right. If it can happen to them, it can happen to any of you out there, and I felt like it was a gross injustice to do that. It was a very difficult decision. It was a very impassioned issue, and I understood both sides, but ultimately what happened was the property rights were taken away from the business. That's in a court. The courts will decide what the decision was, if it was accurate or not.
I'm not running for county commissioner.
Turned it off.
Turn it up, up.
I'm not running for county commissioner, I'm running for county executive. The county council are gonna set the rules. My job will be to implement. The laws will be set by the county council, not the county executive. I agree with Terry and Robert. What happened to the gravel boys down there wasn't right. They didn't request to have it zoned, changed. What I took exception with was anybody in this room could come to one of my properties and request a zoning change without notifying me. Now that's criminal. You want to look at your county commissioners, hold them responsible for that, because that was cold stone criminal.
Personal rights and
Turn it on, please. Somebody turn it on. There you go.
personal rights and property rights are diminishing rapidly. Pardon me? Oh. Arbitrarily to change zoning regulations to serve the benefit of 1 or 2 people at the expense of others is tragic. Unless we act soon, we will not have personal rights. And we're facing an age where instead of laws, what's happening is agencies are establishing just regulations and rules, which are just as damaging and much more difficult to overcome.
Mr. Pritchard makes a good point that this is something the county executive will not have to address because it will be set by council. That being said, absolutely the Stewart property should not have been downzoned. They didn't, it's my understanding they were asking to be upgraded, and maybe that's not the way to go, but certainly you don't go downgrade what somebody already has.
I think there's a few components that need to be addressed. I was on the Comprehensive Rezoning Committee, and we looked at the county as a whole and any rezonings that we felt needed to be updated. When we were looking at the parcels that were being brought in, that the public and even some other members were bringing in parcels. I remember Mr. Diebold had quite a few he brought in, and turned out he didn't own the parcels. I didn't realize that if you didn't own the parcel, you could still bring it in and request that it be upzoned without permission from the owner. But when we were looking at the information, we, as the comprehensive plan, you are looking at, there was a new component. the water quality, I don't remember the exact terminology. This parcel, the group from Carpenter's Point had brought evidence showing that this was going to be a filter to the bay. So from what we were directed by our planning and zoning director, we could make a decision like that with the information that was brought because they spotlighted the property.
Okay.
So time will tell.
Regarding the question about property owners' rights, in this case, we are a democracy. We should be a people, are governed by the people and for the people. With that being said, I would have supported the homeowners in that area. Now, as far as York, I definitely would not have downzoned their property. I would have left it as is, and hopefully that would have avoided the suit that we're now facing as a county and the expense that goes along with it. One more thing I'd like to say, as county executive, if something comes up, it may be on the legislative side of the business, but as county executive, I can bring issues to the council for their consideration. I can bring a topic up to be discussed in legislature. In a case like this, I would do so. And I believe the county executive's role in this is to be a facilitator, to bring these things to the front, if you will, before the council, and let's work them out in the interest of the people of this county. Thank you.
I feel like I don't have a chicken in this fight at all because there were 5 Republicans all talking against each other, all with the same opinions, and they came up with a 3-2 choice. This is one of those things where the individuals who are using property, unless you're shooting somebody's windows out next to a door, it's your property. You can pretty much do what you want to. If you don't harm people next door, that's the real goal. When you do have any filing for any rezoning, any change, then you've introduced a card that can go up and down. Most zonings permit that because the facts are supposed to rule the end result. But in this instance, it's one of those things where, as county exec, what I would do is if something came up where the individuals did not feel that the homeowner had proper notification, that the neighbors did not either, part of what the county exec can do is make sure that everybody has the notification and all the input is there.
Well, you got Hank on last, don't you? I want to address what Mr. Boyle said. I think the county executive's job is to lead, and I would be involved in these discussions with the county council. I'd be there expressing my opinions. I'd let them know how I think, and they would get some direction from the county executive office. I understand the only criteria for changing zoning is change in neighborhood or mistaken zoning. Those are the way we protect property rights. If they meet those criteria, it couldn't and shouldn't be done, and we need to defend our property rights. Thank you.
Okay. Rather than me go down table to table, is there anyone who has a question? Nobody has a question. Okay. What we'll do then is rather than 15 minutes, we'll have 25 minutes for you to talk individually to the candidates. And I thank everybody for coming, and I thank you citizens for being responsible and trying to stay within the 20 seconds that I allotted you.
Can they get a closing statement? Okay, all right. Closing statement.
Oh, well, oh, well. I don't have that on my list. Okay, what do we have? 10 minutes? Okay, so a minute and a half closing statement. Let's go right to left, my right.
Is that me? He turns around, he's facing this way, and he's facing this way, and I'm not sure where right is.
I pace a lot.
Yes, sir, you do. I just want to say again, this is the most important decision we'll make probably in our lifetime in this county. I would ask you to consider supporting me because I have the ability, the desire, and experience to do this job. My track record speaks for itself in the town of Northeast. We are a prosperous town. We have a good mix of residential and commercial. We just opened a Lowe's, for heaven's sakes. We have 125 new jobs in our town. We know how to get that done. I have a desire to serve the counties. I've served the town for the past 20 years as a public servant. That's what we're supposed to be, public servants. And I have experience. I've done that for 20 years. I've done this job. I've been the chief executive officer for the town of Northeast, served in government, and done this job for 20 years. Thank you very much.
Actually, 2/3 of that speech I agree with 100%, but I do think that I can lead. I have one question. How many people here are under 35 years old? Okay. And I'm sorry, ladies, I should have asked. Everybody here who's a lady's under 35, I agree. I think that part of that is the issue. It is not whether our politics are left or we're right. It's a matter of, are we young or old? The issue is, are we all in the county? And if we are, we should have a common goal. Part of what the county executive is supposed to do is both go out there and get everybody to support, to listen to what the public wants, to get the support to get it done, and to help pull people together so that you end up having a common goal. Cheerleading is part of it, listening is part of it, and actually telling people sometimes the good and bad. You want something, you can't afford as much as you want, but we'll start the path to get you there.
I think my background qualifies me to be your county executive. My intent is to provide the services our citizens need at the lowest possible cost to our taxpayers and run this county as if it were a business. By doing so, this will reduce the cost to the bottom line and therefore taxes to our citizens. I can do this job, and I believe so deeply in what I'm saying, I'm willing to give up 4 years of my retirement to do it. It's that important to me. I love my county, and I love the people in it. And I want to see this charter implemented so that it's a true government by the people and for the people. There are a few things that have to be tweaked. I'd like to do that with our council and make this one of the best places in the state of Maryland to live. And I'd like to rival the state of Delaware. If we can work, we can do this. Delaware has a charter government, and they've been at it for a while. They have some good examples that we can learn from them. Thank you very much for your support, and please elect me on April the 3rd. I will do my best for you. Thank you.
Well, I've been involved in Cecil County issues for over 25 years. This is my home. I've lived here for over 30 years, and it is my home. I have, before I was elected, I was a longtime grassroots organizer chairing the elected school board ballot initiatives, and successfully it passed with 88% of the vote. Founding board member of the 21st Century Republican Club and Cecil Land Use Alliance. I organized actually the first 2 tea parties in Cecil County because I felt so strong about transparency and fiscal responsibility and holding our elected officials accountable. And it's getting the input from the public. And I am a strong advocate for the common citizen. I think my record shows that. I will continue to be. If any of you have questions about why, what decisions we've made and why, I'm more than happy to share that with you. 2 minutes just is not enough. But I believe my record speaks for itself, and thank you.
Certainly does.
People tell me that I'm the quiet one, that I need to speak up for myself, and that's probably very true. But one thing I can say, for the past 20 years, I have worked very hard for the people of Cecil County. It's not glamorous, it's not front page headline stuff, but it's the little things. And we've got some huge problems, and they're not all going to be solved at one time, but we have to chip away at them. I've worked with people for the past 30 years. I've surrounded myself by good people, and it's going to take a lot of good heads to solve these problems. But again, I've chipped away, and every decision I made as treasurer was made with the citizens of Cecil County in mind. From little things like mailing the tax bills early to avoid a postage increase, to bringing recordation in-house, which saved $219,000 the first year and saved $199,000 the second year. And that was real dollars, that was not budget dollars. I want to continue working for you again. I can't stand up here and say I'm going to solve all the problems, but I will work very, very hard, and I'll work closely with people, and we will get things accomplished. Thank you.
Yes, we do have a lot of problems. I think we need to look back at our vision, and that vision is to serve the best interest of all the people in Cecil County. We're not going to please everybody, but we have some very serious problems. Most of them are financial. We've reached a stage where the average family income, household income in Cecil County is approximately $38,000. It costs us $60,000 for entitlement programs for a mother and 2 children. This is a difficult burden for our taxpayers. How do we solve it? We need to recognize the government spending. Doesn't matter rather which pocket it's from. It doesn't matter if it's state or federal or county. It's all coming out of our pockets. We have a $20-some million program for food stamps administered by Cecil County. They can't tell us what the money is spent for. I believe that we have spent the majority of that money on junk foods. We probably spent $3 million on Twinkies last year. We could better use that money. That money in education would do wonders. We have to evaluate every program and every dollar that we spend and look for ways to improve this country and this county.
I have a question for the audience before I start. All you got to do is hold your hand up. How many people have seen a copy of the charter that's signed and has a seal on it? Please hold your hand up. It has a seal and signed.
I've seen seal.
That's on the front. I'm talking about the back of the document where it had a seal and was signed. That's your find one, because you're not going to find one. Now that's my question for the county commissioners. We're here tonight and they don't even have a signed sealed document, but that's another issue. What I bring to the table, folks, I'm retired. I didn't tell you, I'm retired from the federal government. I spent 30 years setting up programs and executing programs for the Army. This task, I'm not sure that anybody understands how difficult this task is going to be, to set this form of government up and to get this form of government up and running smooth. It's not going to happen in a year. If they tell you they're going to happen in a year, they just show their inexperience. It's going to take time, and it's going to take the cooperation of the county council. We can't fight. We got to get along together. I don't have time to do their job. They don't have time to do my job. They have to set the council up. So hopefully they'll spend their time and allow the executive to spend their time setting the government. I'll set it up, folks, and make it work. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for coming, and you can tell from the number of questions and the different topics that were asked what huge responsibility it will be for the county executive. And I think everybody up here has made some excellent points about the challenges of the job. It affects your pocketbook. It affects the money that you pay in taxes. And the reality is that you need a county executive that can lead, that can understand that the future of Cecil County depends on being able to bring businesses in to broaden our tax base so that we can share our tax burden with business. To do that, that's going to involve putting infrastructure in our growth corridor. It's going to involve investing in education to make sure that we have a qualified workforce, making sure that our public libraries who have programs for small businesses and startup businesses are supported, and make sure that they reach out to the community. We also have to remove regulations. We have to be able to support the businesses that we have here, encourage them to grow, but also make Cecil County the most business-friendly place to do business. To do that, we're going to have to think outside the box, because as you've heard tonight, there's an enormous amount of challenges. I want to tell you one thing, there's some voter registration forms in the back, and if you're not registered to vote as either Republican or Democrat, you don't have very many choices in this primary election. So I would encourage you to choose one party or another and be able to participate in the primary election, because I think this is truly one of the most important elections in Cecil County's history. Thank you so much. Yes, I prefer Republican.
Cheese and crackers. Let me start by saying I came out of retirement and I was enjoying that. I don't need this job. I want this job. I've worked hard my whole life with my own company. It's survived for 30 years with me at the helm. It's survived for 10 more years with my children at the helm. And it was, we make, I'm saying, I'm not gonna tell you how much the company grosses, but it's a few $1 million a year. And we've always within our budget. And I'll jump back now to 8 years as county commissioner. When I was in office, I worked with everybody was a Democrat board. And on that board, we still got things done. I voted against one of the budgets myself, and I can't remember what it was, but I know it was too much fluff. I didn't agree with it, so I voted against it. I can make the hard votes. I can make the hard decisions. And something else that that's mentioned about bringing jobs to the county, we got 2 bond rating increases in the 8 years that we were in office, and I'm saying we, because I work as a team, and I think everybody here would work as a team. That's the only way you're gonna get it done. And we brought more jobs to this county in the 8 years than I think was ever brought here. And I was right down the center of the road when it come to economic development. I chaired that for the 8 years, and I enjoyed doing it. And I worked hard to help bring businesses here, and I will also do so again if elected as the head guy, county exec. Thank you very much. Got it done in time.
Good job, Barry.
Again, I thank everybody, citizens, candidates. Don't forget, early voting starts the 24th of March to the 29th, Sunday, from noon to 6, I believe it is. And if you would, when you leave, would you turn your chairs to the table? It's less work we'll have to do. Thank you again.